It's the downside to having two identical looking decks. You got to pay attention to details then. That's hard.
Yeah, I switched email provider about 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
It's been pretty good. It's a very opinionated service. So it's like, whereas a lot of them are trying to cater to as many different kinds of users as possible. They're like, no, we're doing email this way.
Yeah.
So it kind of necessitates a little bit of adaptation to get used to it, but it's been really good.
Technically, David sent you the link. See, subtly different. One more logo. Excellent.
Start slideshow doesn't actually target this stuff.
I saw that microphone sitting on a shelf in one of the videos. Just like, there it is!
Oh yeah, a lot of times I was just like, I had like hours of stuff.
Yeah.
Which again is cool, like when you're listening in like nice headphones, and
Yeah.
I've got a lot where I just hold out and like the kids would like whisper into it and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
I wanted to do more of that, like even in darkness and that stuff, we're just using more audio, but maybe that was a little too out there for where we're at now. But in the future, I think there's a lot of cool stuff you could do.
Yeah.
With that and like quotes and just hearing people, because like I've got like a drum circle, and just other really just rich kind of audio from out there. But we're learning as we go still.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, I'll let you roll something.
Okay. Yes, sir. Say it's on. Check.
Yeah, make sure both.
This has got blue lights. Mike. Okay, guys, we're going to get started. If you could all take some seats. Not quite. That one. Right here. This is our camera. Oh yeah, you want to aim that at me?
Yeah, I do, in fact.
So I guess probably here's presenter position. Yeah, should work. Welcome everybody that's sitting down. Unwelcome everybody that's not. You are at the Minnesota VR and HCI meeting. We are a kind of offshoot of the International Game Developer Association Twin Cities chapter. How many people, this is the first time at an MNVR? One. How'd you find us? That's right, you're a presenter. It is. So this is our schedule here. REM5 is going to, various people talking about two different projects. And then we've got headsets set up back here for the longer one that you can try out. And we'll have a link so that you can try out the AR-based one right on your phone. So we reserve half hour, give or take, at the end. So everybody can get a chance to try that wants to. If you are online watching, you can actually download this directly. I added this link to the Eventbrite, if you remember where you saw that. And this app is directly available on App Lab. If you search on a Quest, instead of using your phone, you just have to spell this exactly right with the apostrophe S, the space.
All caps?
No, not all caps. But if you do it on your phone, it's a little easier, or if you go on your phone to Eventbrite, you can see this, and you can also try the AR app that is linked from our Eventbrite. Okay. Our meetings are open to everyone, and we're committed to having a safe and inclusive environment. If you have any trouble tonight or at any of our other meetings, talk to somebody that's organizing, or if you don't feel comfortable, just contact us on Discord or through our website, has our email address. This is slightly outdated. We just had some elections last month. We'll get this updated. Actually, 2 weeks ago, the elections closed. We'll get this updated, but this is our all-volunteer board as of 2 weeks ago plus a day. Got a couple changes on that. We'll show them to you next time.
So we're getting paid now?
Yeah? You weren't getting paid? And then we have additional bunch of volunteers. If there's anything you're interested in doing or helping out with, or just want to volunteer and want an assignment, we'd be happy to have you.
Some who are not board members.
Yeah. This is our regular schedule. So now we've taken over every Wednesday, except when we get really long months, and there's a 5th Wednesday. You can see here we're on the 4th Wednesday. That was a great plan of mine up until Thanksgiving, Christmas, when we don't have meetings now. We'll have a social event kind of in between the two. And we have 2 special interest groups in addition, a Women in Games gathering and a POC get-together, which is on the 5th Saturday, so next Saturday coming up this month only. And we got heavy investment into a Discord server. If you're making a project and just want a place to point people without all the maintenance headaches of keeping a Discord server configured and secured, think about doing that. I think there's around 10 games in there now. And we like to let you know about other things that are going on locally, related, unrelated even. But this one is very related. Right here in this space, in April 11th, will be an event with kind of a crossover of the local AI group and all the XR stuff that REM5 does. And yeah, if you are interested in that, definitely check it out. If you have a project that has some element of AI and XR at the same time, even if it's small, get in touch. They're looking for people to demo. And hey, Marty, what's this? Where'd you go? You hand that to that guy back there?
It's hello.
Oh yeah, this is the house mic. That's good. You talk into that, and we'll worry about the stream only.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
It works. So yeah, it's live in the App Store. I think 3 people have downloaded it. Maybe it might only be 2.
That's how many headsets there are.
Yep, that's everybody in the state.
It's the market's saturated. The intersection of Vision Pro users that like puzzle games.
Have you advertised it anywhere?
No, not really. So that's my fault. No, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
This is advertising.
This is it. And what's the history?
Buy one for your friends.
What's the history on this project, briefly?
So I made this originally in, oh God, what year was that? It was for Google Cardboard, and it was a fun little experiment. It might have been like one of my first Unity projects, really. And I was just like learning the Google Cardboard SDK, and I just wanted an easy project to do that with. And then I showed it around town at all kinds of different events and stuff. And I think I showed it one year at GDC. I think I pitched it to publishers at GDC one year. It's like the only game I've pitched to publishers, actually. No bites, though. And then, then I abandoned it, as I abandoned all Google Cardboard, and everybody did.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never published it before. And so then I wanted a Vision Pro project that would be fun and easy, and Nate helped out a bit. And we just ported it to Swift, and it's all native. It's all programmatic drawing. I guess that logo is not programmatic drawing, but the game itself. And I'm going to be talking about it next month at this very event.
Exactly. So yeah,
So there was, the old one was only on the cardboard?
That's right.
Okay. Because I remember playing it.
And
Yep.
that's why I never published it, was because I was too busy trying to port it to other platforms. I should have just put it out there.
Isn't it time for cardboard to come back as a retro game?
this is kind of bad.
Where all the old retro games?
And so this is not actually a plug, but I just wanted to throw it in here in case people didn't see it. One of the things that's been interesting with the Quest especially is how little access we have to environmental data, as in basically none. But there was some research published from Meta's group that they came up with kind of a really unique application of AI to turn point cloud data, like you get when you just walk around and set up your space, into sectioned and labeled kind of indoor environments, let's say. And the interesting part about this is they did it all with synthetic data and then show how it works in real life with real cameras. They've got a huge open source data set of indoor furniture, walls, doors, all this kind of stuff labeled because they want to encourage other people to do this too. And so it's interesting to finally see that they're not just being mean and jerks and not letting us do anything, that they have big grand plans here. So this doesn't exist on Quest yet. This demo is running on Quest, but all the data was captured with their AR glasses that don't even have a screen, but just showing how this can be done. And the neat thing about working with synthetic data then is they can make synthetic camera arrays and sensors and test how they should work if they bother to build them physically. So it's a really neat approach. It's called Scene Script, and it's worth kind of doing the read-through at some point. But, and there might be somebody here or online that might be interested in just looking at their synthetic data sets and using them themselves. This is kind of an example, but it's just ridiculous amounts of stuff. So if you need some rooms and you're not super picky about the format or the performance, you might be able to use them for something. Or if you're super technical and want to spend a lot of time.
Where did they source them? Did they say, like, it was just all the employees, like?
That's a good point. This was actually a couple of years ago. Yeah.
I think the FBI is most of the data for you. It is Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure they cover it somewhere because they've been publishing about this. Well, the assembly in the rooms are, yeah, but the point clouds for a couch, for a wall, for a bed.
What's it called again?
Scene Script is the name of the new publication. Right there.
Didn't they promise us that we'd be able to like make our own rooms and be able to decorate them and everything on the Quest home? That was like the whole selling point, and it hasn't even come out yet.
I mean, yeah.
Really do that Oculus.
Well, you could, and then they took it away. Yeah. But that's real interesting, worth checking out. So, other announcements from IGDA we got merch. It's priced a little higher because we're kind of figuring in a donation to the group that we use for all kinds of things, websites and events and what have you.
And the best thing is that there isn't a warehouse somewhere full of t-shirts.
Yeah. Yep, it's on demand.
I have worked for people who've done that, and no one buys them.
Anybody else? Any random thing you want to share? You don't have to have a website or anything. You just want to do a verbal plug. Pass that man a mic.
Can you pull up gamedev.city?
Sure. Wait, maybe.
Not a website related to anything I've done. I just think it's a neat website that more people should use. I guess it's kind of, forgetting the name. The Orange site, when people talk about the Orange site. Hacker News. It's basically Hacker News, but for like game dev link sharing.
okay.
And it seems kind of interesting. There's a lot of good stuff posted on there, but there could definitely be more people because there's rarely any discussions that are more than 2 comments long.
Yep.
But yeah, there's some pretty good stuff in there, so people should totally check it out.
Cool. Thanks. Anyone else? Anyone? Pass the mic, please.
cleaning out my basement, and before I recycle this kinetic, I thought I would see if anybody else could possibly use it.
Oh, Connect One.
Connect One. I had it on eBay for $7 for 6 months, no bites.
Really? Interesting.
If nobody knows Robbie, Robbie brings his old stuff here.
Yep.
That's right. Not my stuff, it's company
Uh-oh.
stuff.
So, any-
No, it's corporate.
But might be fun to just tear apart.
is anybody interested? Talk to Robbie. Anybody online that's interested, get in touch, and we'll put you in touch with Robbie through a double-blind escrow system. I don't know.
I mean, in the back alley.
Yep. You should probably be local. Yeah.
Well, the serial number is probably registered somewhere. Or $7 on eBay.
All right. Moving on. Moving on.
You could probably resell it for $5.
So moving on, we got a couple of projects from REM5 that they've done recently, and I think Brian, are you kicking off? Come on down. Let's hear it for Brian and everybody else at REM5.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. All right, let me get this set up here. Don't look at my tabs. Oh, you haven't seen the half of them is the worst part. I'm hiding more of them. All right, hey everybody. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, Brian Scalick here with the REM5 Studios team. Thanks again for coming out to our space. We've been really happy to host y'all. Tonight, we've got two projects we want to talk through. One is Polio's Last Mile, which is a VR project that we just have been finishing up in the last couple weeks here that I'll get into first. And then secondly, we did an AR kit reveal with the Minnesota United that Jason will be talking through. We also have Matt and Amir that'll be chatting as well. So we're going to kind of try to cover both of those a little bit at high level, more for like client facing and the why we did the projects. And then Matt and Jason will go a little bit deeper on the technical aspects of what we were able to overcome in building these. Very recent projects as well. Cool, so just a little bit of backstory on the physical REM5 location that you're in right now. And Amir can add any other notes to this, but basically back in 2017, 2018, wanted to build out a space where people can come and use the technology. As everyone in this room can remember, back then was a very different time than it is now, as we just have headsets like lying around and like, oh, here's another one, and we found one under the couch, and just a lot has changed since then. So I haven't been on board for the entire time, but a good amount of that. And basically what this building has allowed to do is not only just events like this, but on the weekends people can come in and have a good time and experience VR for the first time. We can do corporate training. And at the end of the day, it was just, you need to build a location to have it so that we can have all the equipment, white glove content service to provide it for a number of those different alleys. And since then, we've worked with over 100,000 users. Coming back to the theme that a lot of those are first-time users. Even in this day and age, 5-6 years later, we are running into groups and rooms where we're showing VR to 90% first-time users. So we'll kind of come back to that. Here's some of the other companies we've had the chance to work with. And again, some of this today is going to be a little bit more of that client-facing, client relationship on how we are able to bring these projects fully from meeting and discussion all the way through actual deployment, whether that's in the space with a group like this or out in the field, that I'll cover a little bit more here today. So very recently, as we've been talking to groups, we've kind of repositioned and recategorized instead of using the terminology and the buzzwords that are constantly changing and overlapping and getting more confusing for an everyday audience. We kind of stripped back and just said, we're either going to talk about, is it in a headset? Is it on a computer? Is it on my mobile phone? And I think we've just found that, and feel free to use that in your own conversations, we've just found that people get it. They're like, oh, gotcha, like, I need a headset. We're like, correct. Or I can just do it from my phone. And then we have demos of all those options. So kind of in the VR/360 category, we've done a number of projects over the years, all the way, and Matt's been a part of some as well throughout all of these. But basically kind of, there's been a little bit of a progression between fully immersive interactive VR, and then even more recently, we're kind of seeing a resurgence in interest in 360 video, 360 and 180 video, which has been kind of cool, because I know we were just talking about Google Cardboard a second ago, and I think what we were seeing and hearing from folks is like, if they haven't done, 6.VR or fully immersive VR, they're like, oh yeah, I did the cardboard thing at a trade show or back in the day. Like that's the words that people use. Like I did the cardboard thing, which is great, right? I mean, cardboard helped people at least get to accessibility and understanding like, whoa, this is pretty cool, especially at a time where they didn't have $5,000 to build out a home setup. So we love 360 and or 180 video, just because like you can go places, you can democratize experiences, you can show something really cool to folks. But we also understand that from like the industry side and like the hardcore VR, fully immersive CGI folks, 360 video can kind of just be oh yeah, that's like the thing that the filmmakers are doing, right? There's kind of these two groups. And so to kind of combat that going into this project and even some of these more over the last 6 months is like, how do we shoot 360 and then plus it up through interactivity, using mixed reality that Matt will talk more about on this most recent project, make it more interactive so that it's not something that somebody did 7 years ago, right? Like how do we reintroduce 360 completely separately? Apple's like, hey, have you guys seen immersive video? And everyone's like, oh my God! Which again, for us is great, because now it's a talking point and people are like, you can do that? And we're like, yes, we can. So that's been kind of fun as like a big selling point for immersive content that we can just kind of like get on the, follow the tail of that a little bit. So that's kind of this trail that's going into what we've been doing over the last 6 months. I'll play the trailer for this project real quick that'll kind of hopefully set the scene for a little bit of what we'll talk about and just kind of give a baseline to it. Let me make sure I got some volume on here.
Brian, real quick, one other quick note on the 360 video too, because like it's been awkward for us over the last year and a half to be doing a lot of the projects, 360 projects we pitched like 5-6 years ago. But what we found is like a lot of our enterprise clients, they have this weird block to seeing something that's not photorealistic with CGI. And so even though it's linear 360 video in some cases, with our 50, 60-year-old decision makers, it's hitting way harder than like mind-blowing, fully interactive VR that we all love. And so we've just kind of said, all right, we're just going to meet our clients where we are on this stuff, and we've done, I don't know, 6 of these projects in the last 7 months, which has been a fun part. So,
Yeah.
and then Apple jumping into the game, reinventing immersive video, has kind of helped that as well. So it's kind of it's weird. While we live in this room, like we're in a bubble compared to where the rest of the world still is.
Yeah, completely. And kind of on that note, as any questions arise, like feel free to just chime in and we can discuss. But here is the trailer for Polio's Last Mile.
While polio exists anywhere, it's a threat everywhere. Polio's Last Mile invites you on an emotional journey to Zambia to feel the heartbeat of hope and unwavering determination of the heroes on the front lines to end polio. Powered by cutting-edge immersive technology, you'll journey alongside community health workers like Iris as she leads a field team during a comprehensive door-to-door immunization campaign. Hear from Christabel, a mother of 3, as she shares her dreams for her children's future, free from the shadow of polio. Witness the vibrant colours of Zambia's rural landscapes and the determined faces of volunteers as they triumph over seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Join us. Together we can close the final chapter on polio and embrace a future of health and promise for all.
A great trailer.
Thank you.
We just sat through it. No, it's really a good trailer. I mean, I used to help make trailers. That's great.
Wow.
So you need to do it in a rotating chair.
I mean, there was some hints in there.
I kept trying to stand up to like, oh, wow.
I saw you. I was like, he's going rogue. He's going rogue. Yeah.
And it says, sit back down.
The electric shock was turned off, so yeah. I said the electric shock was turned off for people to stand up.
But again, it was the interface is great. I mean, okay, oh, I gotta sit down.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know a couple folks got to get into it, and then of course we'll have time afterwards for everyone to see it. But thank you for the feedback. I mean, for us, a lot of this too is like, A, we have to show it to people, like in headset ideally. B, how do we make a trailer that's like, oh, gotcha, it's a person, putting on a headset. They can still see out into the world. They're going to learn about polio. They're going to see footage, real human footage, and we package that up into a minute. And then we can send that out to partners being like, here's what to expect. And if you have any other questions, let us know. But hopefully this covers 98% of like, well, what is it? How do you do the thing? So cool. I'm glad that hit well. Just going to do a little bit of just a background about the project. Here's some kind of behind the scenes. We've got the camera right here as well. But kind of the big part of this was, so we were working with the Gates Foundation. They're one of 6 members of this larger coalition that's globally trying to end polio. So we're like also meeting a lot more partners. But it's really, how do we educate and engage folks to do an immersive video experience about actually seeing the dollars and the people at work without taking folks there. And kind of these 3 big buckets like Amir just alluded to, how are we showing real people, just authentic, being there, full immersion? How are we showing how tough this job is so that people understand, I mean, we all just went through COVID, like getting vaccines out there was very difficult in the US, so think about being in rural Zambia to go deliver vaccines, like it is not easy. And then lastly, it's like, how do you make this emotional tie so that it's not a foreign, distant concept, you're right there with the folks. And I think hopefully the people that get to see the project, that we tried to and did a pretty good job aligning with those 3 buckets. So timeline just on this project back in general. So we were in Zambia mid-October, and then first week of February, we were off showing it to groups in New York. We went out to DC, London. So kind of in the last 45 days, we've been showing this V1.7 very close to final product to a lot of the core groups and a lot of the core stakeholders, which has been great for us, just getting, I think like I mentioned, some folks, they don't have a lot of technical feedback like this group might have, but a lot of people just, again, speaking to the emotional tie that they got from the experience, because we're out here showing it to folks at UNICEF, Global Citizen, the United Nations, people who get kind of this global health world, that when they are on the ground in Zambia, they're like, oh man, that's what we're working towards. And so that's been kind of really cool to see from just being literally out and activating it with folks. Uh-oh, I just got a Slack. Uh-oh. And so kind of what that comes back to a little bit is the starting off with this is a space for people to get introduced to VR. This is what we're finding out too, is when we build these for our clients, at least for now, and we're starting to hand this off, is that we show up in London with 20 headsets in a suitcase, and we roll in and we get hundreds of people through, right? We're just really good at deployment. And Matt will talk a lot more too about how we got this, that it's super easy to use, and now we're actually able to train in our client partners to actually be out deploying it, which if you think about this time last year would have, I think we all would have fainted thinking about, setting a Quest 2 out or even before that. So a lot of cool things are coming together in the last 6 months that have made this super possible for us to encourage our partners to be places that we can't be all the time. A little more on the behind the scenes, like I was pointing over here, we were shooting on the Insta Pro 2. We were shooting at 8K 30. We were using the wireless Rode mics for some of our interviews, also just getting conversations out in the field. We got a little bit of ambisonic audio, which we'd love to do more in the future. But kind of at the end of the day, the most difficult hurdle was being out in 100-degree weather with batteries that were overheating and just lugging stuff through neighborhoods and climbing over shit. It was kind of wild. But that's kind of the whole part of the adventure, right? We're out there getting the real stories. We're not telling people action. We're not setting up a scene. We're hey, how do we get out of the way so that you can do your job in these communities, and we can try to get, a really cool angle and just be in the moment. And again, you'll kind of see that in the experience. So it was a lot of learning for us. We went from 0 to 100 on oh, polio still exists, and here's what we're doing with campaigns out in the field, and here's why we need more funding to eradicate the disease fully. And so then we had to kind of come back and distill down 50 terabytes of footage into a 10-minute video, which is not a super easy task. But yeah, so that was kind of just being out in the field. I don't know how much everyone's done with 360 video recording, but it's really cool, but also there are some challenges to it. And like we can talk more about that kind of afterwards if anybody has any more technical questions from the editing side of things.
Are you going to talk some more about actually doing it, or can I ask a couple questions?
Yeah, go for it.
And again, I had to shoot live action before.
Yeah.
How many, like, how often did you have to like do a take, retake? And there are some very immersive points in the piece where these young kids are like looking at the camera and they're looking at me. I was just like, hey, you're looking at me.
They're pointing
I'm
at you,
there,
yeah.
and you're looking at me, and they're smiling at me, and it was. And again, this is part of the editing, no doubt. But it was. I kept wondering about. Normally when you're shooting, don't look at the camera. That's
Yeah.
something that constantly you say to kids when you're shooting with 2D stuff. And it was so cool because they were looking at the camera. And anyway, I was really impressed by that.
I mean, whether we're in a rural community in Zambia or whether we go and set this up in downtown Minneapolis, no one's seen one of these just sitting out in the field. Like people are used to 2D shooting being on a cell phone, but everyone's like, what in the heck is that? So yeah, we loved it too. I mean, and we weren't gonna get around that from we wanted the kids to be happy and playful because they're not getting polio, right? At the end of the day, like having them get super, just seeing them in the environment, and that's one less thing for them to have to worry about was like awesome. So
it was this really awesome sort of way you used, I felt like you were using that sort of unique thing.
And it was all, I mean, and you were talking about like takes and stuff, and the only takes we had were when we had some interviews that y'all will get to see, because right, they want to get what they're saying right. English is not always a first language, right? So there was some working through that, but 98% of the time the camera's set up and we're ducking behind a pile of cinder blocks, right? Like that was just the nature of the beast, which was cool, but then trying to edit around any of that and kind of get the best shots. But as far as just being in the moment, and it's all super authentic, which is what we wanted, right? It wasn't, hey, can you come vaccinate this kid again? Because they already got him, right? So that's why we're hitting whatever 50 houses a day, 25, 50 houses a day, where we're just hopefully getting ahead of our group. We catch them kind of walking. We do a lot of like walking passes, but for the most part, we're just fly on the wall, pretend like we're not here. Yeah. And there's so much on the cutting room floor, right? At the end of the day, like there was so much stuff that we couldn't show that's still really good, but we had to pick all the top tier stuff to kind of put back together. Spoiler alert, but you'll see it. I mean, we were running with a 5K walk one day, like through traffic and like trying to get out ahead of the parade, and then they come by, and then you got to run and get to the next step. So
I was very
it was like not, yeah.
very disappointed I couldn't hear the music they were playing.
Yeah, no, there's no blooper reels of us dropping one of these in the middle of Zambian traffic, unfortunately, but cool. So yeah, I mean, again, just like kind of being in the moment, letting it roll, trying to keep the camera cool. Having backup batteries. I mean, because basically we park our car and then we'll never see it for the next 8 hours. So I've got like a bag of just like backups and like whatever else. We had a second camera with us too that we were swapping. Yeah, pretty wild.
When you say overheating, did you mean you or the different players?
Both. There would be our DP was literally fully soaked at all times, and it was I mean, I think we kind of all were, but yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, we lucked out because it didn't rain for the 10 days we were there, but it also was 100 degrees every day we were there, so not.
We had two cameras that we were basically just like hot swapping in and out because it was wild.
We got a shot inside of a freezer at one of the vaccine locations just to cool the camera down. Extreme sport.
Did you think yourself sort of lucky from all the outdoor? The lighting is just great. I mean, that's kind of lighting that it's hard to get when you're out to shoot.
Again, we lucked out for sure. Cool. Well, like I said, I mean, and I can grab some questions, but I want to make sure we keep going. We can talk a little bit after this. But kind of just setting up Matt's section on kind of the more technical nature of what we're doing now. Is that we worked on a project that we launched basically late fall before Quest 3 came out. And so we've kind of made this path between, especially like when we're like curating for Film Fest and stuff, like everybody's just like, oh, how do you distribute a 360 video? Here's an 8 gig MP4, download it and then sideload it, and like there you go. And so we're like, all right, how do we get around that, because that's like not professional and not something we want clients or general public to do. And so, and then Matt can kind of get into this, but just basically building out apps that we can update in real time. But then the project back in September, starting people actually in a full CGI world and having some interaction moments, but actually starting the video by reaching out and just using hand tracking, which for the general public and even still for me is like super magical. You're like, oh my God, I have the power. And then of course Quest 3 comes out, and Matt's developing for how do we start people in mixed reality to make it even more comfortable for them to not have that, they're easing themselves into it, because that's just, for us, it's like, how do we constantly think about and put our own family members into experiences where they're like, I didn't get this, or I didn't understand this. Like that's our like test and learn. So kind of wild in just the past, like basically that 3 months between September and December, like what we were doing changed a lot. And I think Matt can kind of come up and start to speak a little bit more about that. That's you. And then, super side note, we'll be demoing for anybody who didn't get a chance to see it beforehand afterwards. So just let me know.
We're going to bring them to the bar, right?
We actually demoed this at like this really nice restaurant in Zambia. Like, so there's 2 people with them on, like, and no one's ever seen anything before. We're just like, it's just.
Back in the old days, we used to put them on in the Red Cow. There'd always be a headset on somebody.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll get into the tech. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Foreman. I did the development work for Polio's Last Mile. So, yeah, just want to share some interesting technical aspects about the project and stuff that'll be hopefully useful to you guys as well. So we used Unity in the Universal Render pipeline, and as some of you already experienced, it's a seated, hand-tracked experience. It's a mix of what we've done is a mix of VR and pass-through. We started with a full VR experiences back when we were developing for the Quest 2, just because the pass-through obviously wasn't there yet for Quest 2. But when the Quest 3 came out, we started moving towards background mixed reality, kind of a mixed reality backdrop. We found that this kind of eased someone's transition into VR, especially if they're a first-time user, and it's kind of what we use going forward here. So a big part of it, and I'll get into more of this later, is automatic experience start and reset based on whether the headset's worn or taken off, kind of using the proximity sensor on the forehead. We distributed it on Quest 3 via App Lab. So this is pretty great. You can just kind of push updates out and they'll eventually pull down. For the video playback, we use the AV Pro plugin. And this is a fantastic plugin. Some of you may have used it already, but supports 360, 180 video, mono, 2D or 3D stereo. And for the large video files, we really couldn't pack those into the app itself. So those are hosted in AWS, and you can kind of see there, I made a system that auto downloads the videos on the first run of the app, and it saves it to the Quest's local storage. And the videos also auto update. So when the app boots up, it doesn't re-download the video, it just gets the file size header. And if the file size doesn't match, it deletes its current file and downloads the updated one. And the project is actually reskinnable, meaning we got a bunch of different app builds out of the same Unity project. And I'll get more into that later as well. Yes, question?
How big are your download sizes usually?
It varies based on the compression, but it can be anywhere from a gigabyte of video to 6 gigabytes, depending on the client. So it's significant. It's not really anything we could pack into an APK file or an expansion file. So the cleanest way to do it was just to host it in AWS S3 storage. It's kind of like a fancy Google Drive, and then it just pulls the file down. So
when I just used it just now, that file was already there.
Yep, it was already there. It gets saved on the first run of the app when it gets installed.
If I had been doing it truly for the first time, I just downloaded it, how long do you think would it take to download that?
Usually takes about 5 minutes to download. Yeah, and if you just put it on for the first time after freshly installing the app, you would see that downloading content sign there with the progress meter. So that.
The intention is never for someone to actually have to like sit through that download.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're showing up at events and activations for our clients, or our clients are doing it, and it's kind of a one-time download. Where this has been beautiful is that we can get headsets out. Like we're working with another client right now where we're shipping 4 headsets out next week, and then we're just going to keep pushing them updates for reviews on the headset instead of doing the old way, which is send them a YouTube clip of it, which sucks. So this has unlocked the ability to do that with a novice VR user, which has been awesome.
Yeah, so like Amir mentioned, if we want to update a video, we just go in our AWS storage and swap it out and tell the client to restart their headset, or, I mean, usually they just need to boot up the app and it pulls down. But still made the downloading content UI look pretty because our clients will see it even if the general public won't. So I just wanted to go over some considerations for high throughput VR experiences. So that's something that the knowledge at REM5 that kind of dates back to when we did Quantum Mirror VR. I don't know if some of you remember that presentation. Yeah. But that was our REM5's first hit at a high throughput VR experience, and kind of just expanded from there into this whole 360 experience stuff. So just wanted to share some learnings. If you're doing a high throughput VR experience, don't even bother with controllers, just use hand tracking. The general public doesn't understand controllers. You're just giving them this clunky, confusing thing, and they don't know what to do with it. So just use hand tracking, and it's also you're also going to want to like tutorialize it by having them reach out and touch something to start the experience. Do a little particle effect, sound effect, to give them feedback that they did a good job. And after that first hand-tracked interaction, they understand, oh, I can just use my actual hands. That's amazing. And then good to go for the rest of the experience. Another consideration is that the experience needs to run itself. This is especially important once we pass the torch on to our partners who run the app themselves. So the app is set up to automatically start and reset the experience based on the headset worn state. And that happens via the proximity sensor on the headset. So when you put the headset on, you see this recalibration screen in the upper right here. Please sit still and look straight forward to recalibrate. And there's like a little timer bar that moves, and then when it gets all the way, it kicks off the experience. So the timer bar is like when someone's sitting down, they're kind of looking around and adjusting and getting comfortable, and then if they move around too much, that bar resets. So we want them sitting and looking straight forward in like a natural resting position before we actually kick off the experience. Another learning, turn off the Guardian. It's way too finicky. It just screws stuff up. Someone can appear like 30 feet away from the recenter point randomly, or the floor can be up here or way down here. And it just loses tracking too often. It just wasn't reliable enough to use out in the field. Also, it's not something we can really expect our clients to know how to set up. They aren't as comfortable using the Guardian. Yes, question? Yeah, good question. So to turn off Guardian, it's the developer settings in the headsets. Nope, you can't do it in Unity. That is an operating system level setting. Yeah. But when you turn off the Guardian, you don't have like a floor height reference anymore. So the easy solve for that, if you're doing a seated experience, is just to set the camera at like a comfortable sitting height. If your floor is like a little bit off from the real life floor, no one's really gonna know if it's a VR experience. And if you're in mixed reality, then floor height doesn't matter at all, because the floor is the real floor. Another consideration is you're gonna wanna make the UI auto adjust to the user's position. Even after you recenter and the UI is like placed in a comfortable spot, people move around in their chair, or they could be like leaning forward when they recenter, and then the experience starts and they're like, holy shit, and they back up. And then later on in the experience, they aren't able to reach the UI. So you're going to want to put a little code in there that kind of like smoothly moves the UI forward and backward based on the user's position, just to make sure everything's good there. So yeah. Any other questions about high throughput stuff before I move on? Okay, cool. So another really interesting aspect of this project from a technical standpoint is that when building this from the ground up, we made it a reskinnable project. That was the intention from the start, so that we could build lots of different apps from a single Unity project, rather than having a bunch of Unity projects, one for each client. So this means that we came up with essentially a flow, a system that is the same for all of our clients, but we can give each client an entirely unique experience just by swapping out all the content. So it's still a very flexible system. The client feels that they're getting a very unique product, and we can essentially paint a picture for each client just by swapping out the content. So to actually do this, this relies on Unity scriptable objects to reskin the app. If you're unfamiliar, a scriptable object in Unity, you can kind of think of it as a data container. It's an asset where you can store references, metadata, and have like some configuration code that kind of works with the data. So the scriptable object, all unique assets of metadata, stuff like videos, logos, audio clips, Unity prefabs, the app title, even the Android build settings like the key store information are all defined within the app config. And there is code in the app config scriptable object that applies all the settings to the project. Essentially, that red circle there's an apply app config to project button. It's basically a reskin button. So if I was going to make a new app for a client, I would make a new scriptable object, a new app config, and I would populate it with all the settings there. You can see has a project name, a bunch of metadata, the title text, audio clips for like voiceover stuff, and it's not expanded here, but at the bottom there's an array for all the videos, prefabs for the things that you actually like reach out and touch. So this is how you configure a reskin, and it works really nicely because it's all centralized in just one single asset. And then when you're ready to go, you hit the apply button, and it runs Unity editor automation to essentially convert the project to this reskin of the project. And you can build, and you're good to go. It'll set all the build settings for like Android, so that when you upload it to the app lab, it won't complain. It'll go to the right app ID and everything like that. So we found this was pretty fantastic for attracting new clients because it allowed us to move quickly. Even if we were just in talks with a client, we could configure a client demo super easily. P.S. Clients love seeing their own logo, so that's a pretty low effort trick to just, if you're trying to attract a client, get them on board, put their logo in an app, send them a demo, they'll be thrilled. Anyway, essentially making a project with this sort of architecture drastically cuts down on development cost and time. Highly recommend utilizing scriptable objects. So I think that's all I had from the tech standpoint. There were some other things, but these were the ones that I found most interesting. Any questions? Yes?
So you have one Unity project that you just use different skinnable or scriptable objects, and you make separate projects anyway?
Nope, just one Unity project. So we've used it, I think Amir said, like 6 or 7 times for different clients. So completely different app, all from the same project. Cool. So I think, who am I passing the torch to next here? Amir. All right.
Sweet. Thanks, Matt. That was awesome. Yeah, it's the thing we always struggle with is we want to do the coolest, most interesting, highest tech thing. And then we sit in our rooms with our clients and we show them those things and we're like giddy, like little kids. And then they want the easier thing, right? The more user-friendly thing. And so that's where we always come back to and where we've kind of found this groove, this pocket. And with mixed reality, while I would say in one respect we're in Polio's Last Mile in particular, we're using it in a fairly simple way. We're not doing anything wild and crazy with it. Now, we're iterating on that, and our next client will have a more interactive version of it. It goes a long way in terms of putting that first-time user in an experience and them seeing the real world, right? Like just as simple as that. To us, most of the people in this room who have seen it before and maybe do it every day, it's not new anymore, but to the average person, it's like you put on the headset, you see the logo, you have an auto calibration, and oof, okay, now I'm not intimidated anymore. I'm still in the real world. It's been profound in terms of the reactions we've gotten from the general public in something that we wanted to do on the Quest 2, couldn't because of black and white and the wild distortion. The Pro wasn't quite there, but with the 3, we've kind of crossed that threshold now, and it's fun to see. It's also why I don't know I wasn't here last meeting. For the Vision Pro, but it's fascinating to me on how my friends that grew up in the true AR side, like Magic Leap and HoloLens, how the distortion of the Quest 3 bothers the hell out of them. I don't know if anyone else that resonates with anybody, but the folks coming from VR, it doesn't bother them as much. I'll tell you from our clients, and Brian and I have been flying around the world literally over the last month showing this experience. Not one time someone has mentioned anything about the distortion or it not looking real like the real world. Like, for all they know, they're actually like looking at the real world like those aren't even pixels, right? It's been a complete moot point, which is just a fascinating data point and I think a big milestone for our industry. So that's exciting. Cool. Augmented reality. Back to Brian's point, how do we simplify this stuff? We have headsets, we have PCs, and we have mobile devices. So with mobile, as you all know, everybody now has this supercomputer in their pocket. Internet is pretty darn good for most people. Wild enough, in Zambia, we had like 4G in the middle of nowhere. Like I'm FaceTiming my kids like in those villages. It was bonkers, right? Starlink, crazy stuff. Pandemic also has taught everybody to be very comfortable with their mobile devices of all age groups. It's also taught everybody, for better or for worse, what a QR code is and how to scan it with your phone. So since the pandemic, we've been spending a lot more time using augmented reality, mobile-based, because it's so darn accessible for all of those reasons. And everybody is looking for new ways to engage, whether you're a brand, whether you're a company, doing something internally. And so we've had a lot of fun with this technology. We kind of have this chart we usually throw up of this like spectrum of mobile-based augmented reality. So we do a lot in the social media platforms. You have Instagram, has Spark AR, pain in the ass to work with. Really low ceiling in terms of what you can do in that platform, but super accessible, and most people have Instagram. Snapchat, who uses Snapchat in the room? You actually use it? Yeah. Really? Fascinating. Well, I'd love to learn more later. Yeah, it's one of those things like they're AR engine, Lens Studio, is like really good actually, and probably like my go-to if I had to pick one of all the big social media platforms. But I don't know anybody except for Matt that uses, I think I saw one on their hand, that uses Snapchat, so it's like a little awkward. And then TikTok now has their studio, and we've done some recent projects in that as well, and it's pretty user-friendly. But it's TikTok, obviously, which is a conversation for another day. And then last but not least, we have Eighth Wall, which is owned by Niantic, which I believe is owned by Google. and that's ultimately the tech stack behind Pokemon Go. It's not owned by Google? They divested it? Got it. And so that's unlocked an entirely new medium, or I guess avenue for people, because it is web-based, which Jason Webb will talk about in a little bit. But for us, as you can hear, we sound like a broken record. It all comes down to friction for us and our clients. And so mobile device, good internet, and now you can do AR accessible on the web, one click. That makes our clients go from, okay, maybe, to, all right, let's do it. So we've been spending a lot more time using web-based AR. So the Minnesota United, we have a long-term relationship with them. We started working with them back in 2018, I think was the first time we had them in here. We did a big VR project with them. That was one of the 6 or 7 that Matt worked on over the last year. We were at the state fair with them last year. We had over 2,500 people go through a kind of an all-access VR experience, which was a no-brainer. Ton of fun, democratizes the experience of being not only at a Minnesota United game, but you get a lot of looks at behind-the-scenes action in the locker room, in the tunnel, things you can never get otherwise. So that was a fun project. So we have a lot of goodwill with them. They're always calling us, asking for new ideas. They're a younger audience, I would say, of most of the other sports, a higher growth audience than most of the other big sports in the United States. And so they're always up for taking chances. And this stemmed from, in the tailwind of the successful project last summer, saying, hey, we're launching this new jersey. You have any ideas for us? We want to remotely reach our fans and provide them something that's engaging, that tells a story of our jersey. Do we have any Minnesota United fans in the room? I guess I should ask that out of the gates. We got one. Jason, you're a fan now. You're a fan now. Half a fan now? Come on.
This crew is not usually,
Come on.
for somebody whose father used to be a sports reporter, this is not the big sports.
I didn't expect it, but I would have set the over/under higher than 1. All right?
I was wrong once too.
It's all right. It's all right. Cool. Anyways, so long story short, most professional sport teams, they make a big deal about their jersey launches. There are people that just want to, okay, cool, it's a new jersey. And then there's people that go deep into it. What's the meaning behind every damn stitch on this thing, and how does it tie back to the history of the team and the mission and the players and all the above, right? And so they tend to host, the Minnesota United in particular, host a big event every year around it. Post-pandemic, as you can imagine, a lot of these type of events have gone by the wayside, and those budgets have shifted elsewhere. One of those areas is digital. So for us, they're like, hey, how do we provide something that's interesting, engaging? A couple of the bullet, this is actually from one of the presentations we had back, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. So increase engagement and impressions, wow factor for fans and media, must be easy to use, multiple use cases, and how do we tie into the theme? So that got us going with, also fun fact for you, all you sports fans out there, there are all these deep, intricate stories behind every jersey. What we came to learn is that a lot of that comes from the league and is kind of like predetermined. This is, I guess we're being live streamed, so I don't know if I should be saying this out loud. I'm not like bad-mouthing them, but there's a lot of like industry manufactured components to a lot of these, what you think would be very organic stories. So anyways, so we're working off of, we have this Starry Night kit was kind of the concept, right? And we're going to, Starry Night was the theme. We had basically, we didn't even have a look at the jersey. We just had what was it? Small image of the pattern. And then we got a little bit of the narrative. And so there is a blue on the kit. There's a blue trim that represents the water and the river. There's also L'étude du Nord, which stands for the North Star, is one of their sayings. So that was kind of one of the themes. They also brought forward to us wanting to represent all of the stars kind of coming together as a community and manifesting itself as the Minnesota United Collective was a theme that they wanted to bring forward. So as we started designing this AR experience, which you'll see here in a little bit, here's some of the early sketches that Jason loved working with my really detailed descriptive sketches. And so you'll see here starting on the far left, we were gonna start with kind of like a base, a hockey puck, if you will, that you initially lay down onto a flat surface to launch the experience. Bring forward the loon. They have a badass loon, again, for all you fans out there, that has an iconic red eye. That red eye was then going to basically like pulse and start to come alive, and then think Big Bang Theory, and then come back together and manifest itself into what is now the Minnesota United. The eye also, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, when it burst into the Big Bang Theory, had 10,000 particles, exactly 10,000 particles. So that was another cool tie-in back to Minnesota. Ultimately manifesting in this jersey, stunning jersey, which you'll see here in a little bit. And then two other components we added, which Jason will talk about, is one is a jersey customization. How do we elevate that 2D flat customization that I'm sure, again, all you sport fans have done several times over the years, but a lot of times it's fun to go online, team launches the new jersey, you can punch in your name and number and just kind of see it or order it, which is cool. And then the second piece is we wanted to add in a couple of Easter eggs as well. So if you entered some names that are, we'll call like some deep cuts important to the fans in the room, they would unlock a special message from one of the players and a hologram, and then enter you to win a signed jersey by that player, which was a ton of fun. So, and also if you just went through the entire experience and got to the end and submitted your name, you got entered to win a jersey as well. So that's the other thing I would say for anything like this, an AR experience, having that hook and motivating factor to get people through it is huge. People will do a lot for the chance to win something for free. Go figure. One other thing we did that I actually forgot about until I was looking at this presentation earlier today is that we did a little bit of a teaser prior to launching the actual experience. So again, I don't know all the technical aspects of it, but Eighth Wall launched a module probably a year ago that I believe it used a machine learning algorithm to identify and separate the sky from the horizon out of the box, which was pretty cool. And so we were thinking, okay, Starry Night, that would work pretty well. And so about, I think it was the day before they launched the kit, they just tweeted out a link to this experience that was meant to be representative of a telescope. And so this is just a screen record from my phone. I launched the experience. It says look through telescope, and my phone screen, basically the majority of it gets covered up like I'm looking through the lens of a telescope. I look up, it gives me the date of the release. And then also as I'm looking around the sky, I'm seeing those code names that will then be used as the Easter egg the following day. Personally, I thought this was a little bit of a deep cut for the average person to actually like go through this and figure it out. But at the end of the day, over 40 people submitted for the Easter egg jerseys, which was actually pretty darn good. It's a banger track. I know. I was asking for it. I'm done here, so we're just on present mode. I'll get it. I'll just pause it. There we go. No, won't let me. All right, sweet. Thank you. Appreciate it. So at the end of the day, I think it had about 50. So it was a Friday. It was kind of a 3-day campaign that they ran, and I think the initial cohort was about 5,500 users. Pretty interesting average user time. Hundreds of people made it all the way through and submitted to win the jersey. I think it was like 500 or 600 people were the number of entries at the end. Yeah, so a couple different paths. So they have their own proprietary app, and they pushed an update out early. So they were the first ones to be notified of it. They have a email campaign that they launched around it to their couple 100,000 people on their email list, and then they also pushed it out through all their social media channels.
Okay, so the main place was they already had somebody's email. They were known to be a fan.
Yeah, or following them on social media. So I mean, I think between their social media accounts, they probably have 500,000 followers. So they pushed it out through there as well. And then now, fast forward to today, there's a couple, part of how we designed it was for it to be evergreen. And so, I shouldn't say evergreen, good for a couple other use cases over the next 3 or 4 months. And so right now, if you go onto their app and you're scrolling through their schedule, it's gonna pop up between every 2 games. You're gonna get prompted to go and check it out, which is cool to get some additional use cases there. And then we're in talks right now to add it onto some other big signage within the stadium. Think posters, think again, when all of you sport fans go to sport games, you get a piece of paper that gives you the lineup on it. And there's opportunities for advertisement and other things there as well. So it was pretty cool, a lot of fun. They were super happy all the way up to, we even got the owner of the team to try it out, and super impressed by it and really excited about what this next age of digital engagement looks like as their fans, who are already pretty young, grow older and become their larger share of wallet. And I would say that of all sports, soccer has, there's been a couple international teams that have really leaned heavily into augmented reality as well and had a lot of success. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the tech. Jason Webb, everyone.
Hi, I'm Jason. You already got the pun with my last name, so I'm going to get that out of the way. So I'm primarily a web developer and a creative developer. My personal emphasis is more on like procedural generation, and my day job is web tech, so those two things have been intersecting more and more in the last few years. This is a great example of how just knowing how to build websites opens up some really unusual avenues, like just 3D stuff, and this basically is 3D stuff. We're using Eighth Wall, and Eighth Wall is a expensive proprietary solution with a cloud-based environment. So you pay a bit of money, you get access to this online editor. So if you're a developer, you kind of already know the pros and cons of having a locked-in, like a web-based editing environment. They do all the deployment, all the hosting, all the hard stuff. That's cool, but they also lock you down in terms of customizability and the niceties of working fast locally. So the interesting part with Eighth Wall is they had to build their own proprietary AR system. Browsers do have an API that has been available in Chrome and other browsers for a few years now, the WebXR standard, but Apple still refuses to turn the feature flag that they already have in Safari on, so no one can use WebXR because it's not a default for iOS devices yet. So until that device standard becomes available publicly, companies like Eighth Wall create a completely custom version. They write like a C implementation of SLAM, simultaneous location and management, something or other. It can do the processing of the world around you, but it's doing it and then compiling it through JavaScript and making it available in a browser So almost all of your CPU cycles, a bit of your RAM is being used just to process the AR. So that gives you a pretty small budget for assets, for effects. That's part of the interesting part. You can't really know how much people's devices can handle, because everyone's device, even if they have the same make and model, is going to have different health, different battery levels, different amount of apps and tabs that are open. You just don't know. What is common with this is that with it being web technology, they do have a way for you to get in and write normal JavaScript to create your own custom components, build things that you want. So that's where I kind of jumped in. You can trust Eighth Wall to automatically take care of your 3D scene for you. You don't have to worry about how we're triggering certain things to get the actual environment to be tracked. It's just taking your camera feed, showing it to you, and tracking all the frames with computer vision. And you just write a normal 3JS scene, and that scene is automatically scaled, rotated, all that kind of stuff, just to look like it's part of your camera feed. Interesting, totally works. All the 3D aspects built with 3JS. A-frame is in the mix, more because that's Eighth Wall's preferred solution, so you get a lot of your code snippets and your starter templates in A-frame. But under the hood, it's all 3JS. All the 2D UI that you'll see standard is just a web page. It's a normal website, so there's HTML, CSS, and a lot of JavaScript that handles things to make it more app-like to move between states and that kind of thing. So I've got a few breakdowns of the major visual effects that we've got going on. The first one that Amir mentioned is this Big Bang particle system effect. This is using a custom shader particle effect system, pretty normal for like 3JS developers. You just roll your own. It has uniforms variables that you can control from outside of the shader to just determine what you want it to do for you automatically on the graphics card directly. And those things you can manipulate in real time. So we're able to use, again, normal web technologies, things people would use for any regular website, like Anime.js wasn't built for 3D. It just, you give it two values or one value and where you want it to go, it'll just animate it mathematically for you. We just happen to apply it to a value that is used in a 3D system and not like a pop-up or whatever. So there's a lot of really awesome existing technology we just patch into. So Anime.js, like any animation, programmatic animation system, pretty much like keyframe based. You say, I want this variable to go to this value with this easing equation in this duration. And by composing those things into like kind of a timeline of sorts in the code, you end up being able to do all these animations programmatically, pulsing, exploding. It's all the same exact particle system. We're just manipulating the parameters of it in real time to get it to look like it's doing interesting things. This part is my personal favorite part. So we had a 3D artist, Keenan. He made this amazing 3D model based on the reference images that we had. Super realistic. When you're actually in the app, you can walk up close and you can see some of the stitching and the stippling and the mesh patterns. It's really very cool to see. So we wanted to have a awesome introduction to it of some kind. So we had previously seen some of these cool dissolve effects, but one of the downsides of this brand new world on the web is that there isn't as much reusable preset code for weird things like this. So I ended up writing code, another shader that combines a noise effect on the alpha mask with the actual PBR texture maps that are in there. So you're taking a PBR, what do they call them, material, and we're extending that with additional shader code that manipulates the PBR textures. So for me, this was a lot of fun, just learning about how to do that efficiently. Went through a bunch of iterations, ended up with this, and we're pretty happy with it. From that point, once you actually have that that jersey up, we'll show you probably another video of it. You can kind of spin it around, type your name. We wanted that to be an interactive thing so you can visualize yourself, or maybe even preview a jersey if you want to buy one later, or want to have one from your favorite player. Just see what that looks like. Interactivity, making it customizable, is usually pretty easy on the technical side, and it's a huge win in the VR, AR space. It just makes you feel like you're controlling, you're a part of this environment and able to like have godlike powers to manipulate materials and objects around you in real time. This all was really just extracting the existing color map, finding the XY coordinates where text should be, and then just using an off-screen canvas to draw the text we want, where we want, onto the color map, and tossing that whole thing back onto the model, replacing the old color map. This was easy enough to just, every time there's a change, people typing in, update the text for it. I think this will be, no. So there is a step where you're able to flip the jersey around, see the backside, type in things that you want, and just see it show up in front of you. And we'll let you actually have the app QR code to check that out in a second. The final effect, Amir mentioned these hidden Easter eggs. If you're able to find one of those keywords and you type it in, instead of the normal app flow of going to like a social media sharing that we normally give people, this shows up instead of that, and you end up with this hologram. What do they call these things? They don't call them holograms, but they do call them something weird. It's a green screen video that is just billboarded to the camera. As simple as that sounds, it is remarkably effective in VR and AR. Obviously, if you go to the extreme sides, you could see kind of the edges of it. But I mean, it looked pretty good for the most part, and it's up for a few seconds. Brian did some pretty cool, like, glitchy editing. So there is just a green screen video and a shader that extracts and removes the green. So you end up with this. Yeah, that's about it for this effect. It's not technically all that difficult, but in the app, it feels surprising because you don't know what is going to happen when you find that Easter egg. So we enjoyed making that for sure. I don't think there's anything else. So fair game. Anybody that wants to scan it now or afterwards, it's still up, still live, so feel free to just jump in anytime and play with it. So who's next?
Yay!
All right.
Guess that's it.
Cool.
Unless someone wants to volunteer.
Volunteer for what?
Be the next person to speak.
Oh, yeah.
That's dangerous.
Not you.
One quick question for, well, I guess everybody, REM5 and everybody else. I think Eighth Wall works on Quest, but I've heard different things about performance.
It works awesome on Quest 3.
Does this work on Quest?
This doesn't,
Okay.
but I got a bunch of other things that I've been tinkering with that it's so awesome. Even for even like when we were originally working on like a mixed reality thing, and I was doing the creative and designing that, for me as a non-coder to go in and mock stuff up in Eighth Wall, look at it in mixed reality, take a video of it, and send it to Matt and say, hey, do this the right way in Unity.
Yeah.
Was such a nice tool to have. I mean, there's it's got to be the right use case if you actually wanted to use Eighth Wall for mixed reality. But like I've been doing a lot of like conversational AI bots, like creating historical figures.
Yeah.
And it works really, really well. Unless you would try to give it to like a stranger, because getting into MR is a little bit awkward. Like the UI isn't all, it's a little bit hacky. But once you get rolling, it's pretty good.
Cool. Oh, right.
Where they are, it taps into the side view of your persona.
Yeah.
Like live. So it shows, so you're looking at like a 2D screen with it attempting to put your AR experience with the side view of your persona. It's the scariest, most awkward thing until they fix it. But it's because they have this thing called metaversal deployment that they've been pretty proud of. It also runs on PC too.
Okay.
Depending on what it is, if you want to have the ability for people to access it. But in the code, it's really easy to identify the device and shut it down. Like this one, if you, I think it's only accessible on mobile, is that right? So if you tried to pull it up on VR, it just wouldn't let you.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one, maybe even in the future, next time you do any project or presentation, or even just like a short thing. We have, you know, kind of a 10, 15-minute time slot usually at the beginning. Because yeah, it's not easy to go between phone and Quest. And that was some of the stuff they showed recently in demos, and I just kind of heard different things about, yeah, how ready it is for end users and stuff. Like you said, getting there in the browser, not fun in the Quest.
But one other plug I'll throw out there too is that the only reason we haven't used 8th Wall a lot more historically is because it was very cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm.
So we had worked on one enterprise client like 3 years ago with it, and then last fall we started working with another client on it, and we ended up getting like an enterprise deal with 8th Wall directly. So right now we basically have we don't have to pay them any more licensing for the next year. So little shout out there, if anyone is dinking around with 8th Wall that would want to push a commercial project, like talk to us and we can make it happen without having to pay $40,000 or whatever the ridiculous fee is.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, in terms of this meeting here, we got demos ready to go around the corner for people that haven't seen it yet. Obviously, QR code still up there. If your phone can't do it for some reason, I'm kind of shocked. This is a S9 from, I don't know what year, 2018? I forget, is the last phone for Gear VR. You know, find a friend, use their phone. Just take it out of their hand and try out this demo. And just feel free to hang out. Right around 9, we'll kind of tear down, wrap up, and head to a bar, which is north here called JJ's Clubhouse. And we'll get something up on the screen, a little Google Maps thing going up there, because we need to know how many people are going to show up and how many chairs we will assemble together. But thanks everybody for coming, and hopefully see you next month. Thanks.